Gee, I wonder why they wouldn't want John Podesta to be compelled to be submitted to Senate confirmation hearings. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. It's a little hot and it's a little windy for a car vlog today, so we're going to try something different. I'm going to try shooting a vlog in my home office. Pay attention to the clock behind me, people, because that's going to be bouncing around only going forward this entire vlog. So the news of the day, although it's kind of being buried by the propagandist hacks that are the MSM, is that John Podesta has been tapped to replace John Kerry as the, what do they call them, the environmental czar or something? As some form of czar to the Biden administration, but he's going to somehow bypass Senate confirmation hearings. Yeah, you might not have heard this story because I don't think they want people knowing John Podesta is going to replace John Kerry, and somehow it's going to basically bypass any form of scrutiny and oversight whatsoever. Now, Jonathan Turley, and credit to him, seems to be one of the few legal minds currently reporting on this story. I am the other legal mind. All right, and this is what John Turley has to say. At Jonathan Turley, the Biden White House is moving to shift work of the, quote, climate czar, end quote, from the State Department to the White House. John Podesta will now reportedly wield the power without the title and, most importantly, without a confirmation hearing. Well-itchy, isn't that convenient? Do you all remember who John Podesta is? If you do not remember or know who John Podesta is, by the end of this vlog, you will. And slipping under the radar in Yahoo News, referring to a Fox News article. Fox News, moderate Dems silent as Biden skirts Senate confirmation for John Kerry's replacement. Moderate Senate Democrats were silent this week when Fox News Digital asked for a comment on President Biden's decision to appoint climate czar John Kerry's replacement without Senate confirmation. While Kerry will step down as special presidential envoy for climate, SPEC, Biden will not nominate a direct replacement, and Kerry's staff will report to another State Department official while Podesta coordinates policy with the SPEC office from the White House. The arrangement allows Podesta to sidestep a congressionally mandated Senate confirmation since the SPEC role will technically be left vacant. And here we have a picture of John Podesta and John Kerry, what looks to be one zombie replacing another. And now for the political controversy about this, or as they say in Britain, controversy, which is a totally wrong way of pronouncing controversy. Shortly after taking office in 2021, Biden appointed Kerry to be the first ever SPEC, a role that granted him a spot in the president's cabinet and National Security Council, but didn't require a Senate confirmation vote. However, in part because of Kerry's appointment, Congress passed a provision in the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, which Biden signed into law in December 2021, prohibiting the president from appointing any State Department special envoy, quote, without the advice and consent of the Senate, end quote. And why might that requirement be necessary? So that the members of government can vet, approve, and above all else, make public the people that are being appointed to positions of power. And when you see some of these skeletons in Podesta's closet, or as others might like to call it more accurately, the artwork in his house, you're going to understand why they do not want Podesta sitting down for confirmation hearings at all costs to be avoided. Oh my goodness, just wait for the end of this vlog. In response to the White House's maneuver skirting Senate confirmation for Podesta, several more moderate Democrats, including Senator Jon Tester, Sharon Brown, Tammy Baldwin, Bob Casey, and Jack Rosen, in addition to Kristen Sinema, who caucuses with Democrats, were all silent. The lawmakers either ignored or declined to comment when contacted by Fox News Digital. Now, inasmuch as the moderate Democrats remain silent, and by the way, the moderate Democrats are the ones that hold you down while the extreme Democrats steal your country, the same cannot be said of Republicans. John Barrasso, Republican of Wyoming, ranking member of the Senate Energy and National Resources Committee, added that Biden knows Podesta would never survive Senate confirmation. Quote, John Podesta is a John Kerry clone. He will peddle more of the same attacks on American energy, end quote. Barrasso told Fox News Digital. Quote, he will protect China's status as a free rider on international climate agreements. Joe Biden knows Podesta's radical ideas could never stand up to the scrutiny of Senate confirmation, end quote. And to quote the meme, which I may or may not include in this vlog, but wait, there's more, lots more. And Senator Josh Hawley, who serves as the ranking member on the Senate Energy and National Resources Subcommittee on Energy, noted that Podesta has a documented history with officials tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Quote, John Podesta runs a think tank funded by big tech. He's spent years working for dark money climate activists and has said he has the, quote, highest regard, end quote, for CCP officials, end quote. Hawley told Fox News Digital. Quote, this man should be nowhere near the federal government, so it's no shock the Biden administration wants to avoid Senate confirmation and a public eye on their terrible pick, end quote. And in case you're like many other people out there and have never heard of the SPEC, don't worry, it's just just some government entity with 45 unknown employees and an annual budget of $14 million. The spec office is housed at the State Department and has an estimated $13.9 million annual budget with approval for 45 personnel, the majority of whom are unknown. In September 2022, Biden appointed Podesta to lead implementation of the billions of dollars in green energy program funding earmarked in the Inflation Reduction Act. Podesta then staffed his office with several left-wing climate activists. Suffice to say that John Podesta is a purely partisan political actor. He's got a long history with all Democrat administrations. If that were the only and the worst thing about him, holy cows, it would still be bad enough. Wait till we get to the really questionable stuff. I'd love to ask him a few questions on these exhibits, but just a very summary overview of his political career as per Wikipedia. John David Podesta Jr. is an American political consultant who has served as senior advisor to the president for clean energy innovation and implementation since September 2022. Podesta previously served as White House Chief of Staff to President Bill Clinton from 1998 to 2001 and counselor to President Barack Obama from 2014 to 2015. Before that, he served the Clinton administration as White House Staff Secretary from 1993 to 1995 and the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations from 1997 to 1998. He is the former president and now chair and counselor of the Center for American Progress, a think tank in Washington, D.C., as well as a visiting professor of law at the Georgetown University Law Center, and was chairman of Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Additionally, he was co-chairman of the Obama-Biden transition team. In his current role as senior advisor to President Biden, Podesta oversees the disbursement of $370 to $783 billion in clean energy tax credits and incentives authorized by the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. What could possibly go wrong? But don't worry, John Podesta is not just a political hack. He is also, how do we say this?
An absolute moral degenerate.
Some of you who are old enough might remember the Wikipedia email leaks from 2016, in which a lot of very questionable emails were leaked by and between Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, in which John Podesta said a great many politically offensive things, threw Bernie Sanders under the bus. Those are not the details I want to get into, but John Podesta blamed the hack of his emails on Russian entities, even though by all accounts it was his fault because he's an idiot who clicked on one of those phishing emails that he got. Yeah, but blame it on the Russians because that's the easy thing to do.
I will share this with you, Chuck. The first time I was contacted by the FBI was 2 days after WikiLeaks started dropping my emails.
Let me pause
here. The first
2 days after.
2 days after. So October 7th, October 7th, let's go through the chronology.
Yes.
On October 7th, the Access Hollywood tape comes out. 1 hour later, WikiLeaks starts dropping my emails into the public. One could say that those things might not have been a coincidence.
Okay.
2 days later, the FBI contacted me, and the first thing the agent said to me was, I don't know if you're aware, but your email account might have been hacked.
When did
I said,
you
yes.
know?
Yeah, I said, yes, I was aware of that.
But when were you aware that you had been hacked?
I think that it was confirmed on October 7th in some of the DNC dumps that had occurred earlier, and other campaign officials also had their emails divulged earlier than October 7th. But in one of those DNC dumps, there was a document that appeared to me might have come from my account. So I wasn't sure. I didn't know what they had, what they didn't have. It wasn't until October 7th when Assange in his first statements said things that were incorrect, but started dumping them out and said they were going to all dump out. That's when I knew that they had the contents of my email account.
But it's not just the politically compromising emails that were leaked. I've got some questions about one email in particular. Alrighty, people, you all remember this thing called Pizzagate. It was a hoax, right? It was a totally fake thing. And I must say, YouTube, if you're watching, Pizzagate was a hoax. I do not believe it. I do not think that there was any sort of clandestine basement operation child trafficking ring out of Comet Pizza. I do have one question, however.
What the hell is this email about, John Podesta?
This is an actual email to John Podesta with a response from him. I think it's from the Sandler Foundation. This is the email. This was his response. And you asked me, I don't know what they were talking about in there, but what the hell were they talking about in that email? Hi, John. The realtor found a handkerchief In brackets, I think it has a map that seems pizza related. Is it yours? They can send it if you want. I know you're busy, so feel free not to respond if it's not yours or you don't want it. To which John Podesta responded, it's mine, but not worth worrying about. What in the name of sweet holy hell is going on in that email? Now, for those of you who don't know, there is some terminology in the industry. MAP stands for minor attracted person. Pizza is a term that is in fact used in the worst possible industries on earth. The realtor found a handkerchief. It has a map that seems pizza related on it. Do you want the handkerchief back? No thanks, I don't need it. What in the name of sweet holy hell does that mean? John Podesta, go for your Senate confirmation hearings. Josh Hawley, ask him that question. There are more other damning emails in there that some could ask some questions on, but that's really the worst of the worst as far as the question that I would have for John Podesta. I'd also have a question about his choice in art selection. These are actual images of John Podesta's art collection. Again, I have no clue what the hell is going on in that artwork. I just know when I don't like something that I see. Then you got John Podesta tweeting this image out, which is him flashing his hands, and it says 14 on one hand and a fish on the other. Some people have taken this to mean a great many things that I don't understand for the life of me. John Podesta tweeted it out saying, it's rule number 14 of the environment. We got to preserve the oceans, while others had some other questions about that. I might have some questions to ask John Podesta on that image as well if he ever submits for confirmation hearings. And that image sparked a lot of controversy, a lot of theorizing on the interwebs, because it seems that John Podesta has certain scarring on his hands, which many people attributed to this thing called spirit cooking, as per one of the artists that his brother works with, Maria Abramovich. I forget her name exactly. We'll get to it in a second. I will preface this by saying that it looks like John Podesta either has some chronic problem with his hand that results in tightening of the tendons or something, and it often requires surgery. It's called like Dupuytren's syndrome. What's it called? Dupuytren's contracture. And here you have some images which might explain John Podesta's hands. But you can certainly understand how people are putting all of these dots together and coming up with certain questions. And when you hear how a publication out of MIT tried to explain away Abramovich's spirit cooking, just wait for this. From MIT Press, Marina Abramovich's spirit cooking. Just to recap what happened, an email Abramovich wrote to her longtime friend and collector, Tony Podesta, showed up in the WikiLeaks stash. In the email, Abramovich invited Podesta's brother, John, now Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, to join them at a, quote, spirit cooking, end quote, dinner in her apartment in New York. InfoWars reported what they thought Abramovich's, quote, spirit cooking, end quote, is, and concluded that she and Clinton's retinue are straight up Satanists. Don't worry, they're not, quote, straight up Satanists, which actually leaves the opportunity for them to be like low-key Satanists open, but don't worry about it. There's a very innocuous explanation for this. For the record, spirit cooking is nothing but a little known and measured in her oeuvre, a rather throwaway performance Abramovich did in an Italian gallery in 1996, in which she painted apparent instructions on the white wall with pig's blood. Instructions like, quote, with a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand, eat the pain, end quote. She also painted a small kind of icon in the corner with the blood too. It's pretty repulsive and rather luridly aims to shock, but it's also clearly not serious. Abramovich also published a spirit cooking cookbook containing comico-mystical, self-helpy instructions like, quote, spit inside your navel until the lake is filled. Lie motionless. Listen to the heartbeat of a dog. You're not really meant to actually do these things. As Abramovich said at London's Royal Festival Hall last night in a launch event for her new memoir, Walking Through the Walls, it's just poetry. It's just poetry, you're not meant to do it, and then they actually host an event. Spirit cooking later evolved into a form of dinner party entertainment that Abramovich occasionally lays on for collectors, donors, and friends. That's where John Podesta comes in, or doesn't, since he never actually attended the dinner, where anyway guests simply made soup, not out of blood or any other bodily fluid, while overseen by Abramovich in full-on comedy schoolmarm mode. And as for some of that provocative art that John Podesta also has, this is what CBC News reported back in the day. July 14, 2017, provocative artist targeted by Pizzagate trolls. Since 1999, Marshall has been using her children in her films and artwork. Her work is currently on display at the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. as part of its 30th anniversary revival exhibit. Some of Marshall's work is owned and loaned by well-known art collector Tony Podesta, which is likely how it caught the attention of Pizzagate trolls. Tony Podesta is the brother of John Podesta, the chair of the Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Last autumn, conspiracy theorists spread bogus online stories that John Podesta and Hillary Clinton were part of a child sex slave ring operating out of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. Two videos are at the center of the controversy. Both feature one of Marshall's sons, who is now in his early 20s. One video, quote, "When I grow up, I want to be a cooker," end quote, shows her young son seemingly smoking a cigarette. The other video under attack is, quote, "I saw you crying," end quote, in which her son appears to fire a gun. Nothing to see here, folks. No questions to ask John Podesta. Just slip him into that massive position of power in government. No questions asked, and none of this should come to the surface again. And remind everybody what the hell is going on in the Biden administration. And I just want to come back for a brief moment to the descriptor of that so-called Pizzagate hoax. Notice how many conjunctions they have in the description of that alleged hoax, so that if any one element turns out to be false, they can therefore say that the conspiracy theory itself in its entirety is false. Last autumn, conspiracy theorists spread bogus online stories that John Podesta and Hillary Clinton were part of a 1. Child sex slave ring, 2. Operating out of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. Hey, they might be involved in something very nefarious, but it's not operating out of a pizza shop in D.C., therefore the fact checkers can now come in and say fact check false. It's a wild conspiracy theory. Never mind the artwork that could be considered borderline child exploitation. Never mind the artwork that could be morally questionable to begin with. Never mind an email in which John Podesta is asked if he wants a handkerchief back with a map that seems pizza related on it. You'd have to be a nutcase to think any of that could possibly be an indication of something far more sinister. So that's the story. John Podesta, just going to duck out of those Senate confirmation hearings because God forbid anybody should ask him any of these questions. If he's ever forced to sit down for questions, please, Josh Hawley, anybody else out there, ask him any one of the questions brought up in this video. And if you like my video, you sure know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below. Viva Frei on Rumble, Viva Frei on Twitter, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where you can get some amazing content, an exclusive community. If you want to support us, $10 a month, $100 a year at the discounted rate. But more important than anything, get out there, exercise, eat healthy, talk to people in real life, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. I don't want to really touch my camera here, so I'll just go like, booyah!
But you might say that pain is Marina Abramovich's medium, and her message, deal with it. Back in 1973, she rhythmically jabbed the spaces between her fingers, at times drawing blood. Shocking stuff, but to hear the art world tell it, serious, important work that breaks boundaries.
The worse childhood you have, the better artist you become, because you have things to work with.
Her favorite tree is here.
Everybody have to find his own tree, Try.
Yeah,
Say hello.
I like it.
But really, and then just,
Yeah, it's gorgeous. When do you get to come into nature and hug it?
And we hug together.